When did you realize that there were going to be so many election deniers on the ballot this midterm cycle that you needed a tracker to just like at the very least inform people?
We need multiple Excel spreadsheets to keep track of this. It all actually started more than a year ago when in 2021 we were hearing all sorts of reports and what we were hearing, two things. The first is we were hearing clear efforts by leading politicians and personalities, if you will, in the election denying community, calling on people to run for offices. And then we were hearing people saying, kind of on the ground, local, people in the democracy community saying that they were seeing people running for these posts. And, in some cases it was like county commissioners or, election judges. So we just kind of started with a really small experiment in Pennsylvania. We pulled up the names of a bunch of people who were running for offices in a few counties, and all of a sudden started finding people who were kind of election deniers running for these offices. We found one person who had chartered multiple buses to January 6th in Washington, D.C. So after that little snapshot that we did, we decided, we really need to step back and take a look at this systematically and nationwide. And so we began a project involving multiple researchers and people who started looking systematically at all of the people who were running for governor, attorney general, and secretary of state throughout the country. And we've been doing that systematically since the beginning of this year. We started with the primaries, and now we're ready for the general this Tuesday. And what we're showing is that there's an election denier running for one of those big three offices in more than 50% of the races in the United States. More than half of Americans are going to be, covered or are in the middle of selecting whether or not an election denier is going to be in charge of their election results in 2024.
I mean, that is a scary statistic. Yeah, as you guys lay out, 40 states plus DC have races that are going to have an election denier. So chances are, if you're living in the United States, that is that's going to be on your ballot. What are some of the states that are most concerning to you? I mean, Arizona really sticks out to me because all three, Kari Lake running for governor, the AG, and the Secretary of State candidate, all election deniers.
Yeah, so if you take a look at what were the states that were the closest and kind of, on the knife's edge in 2020, and then you map that against 2024, what you would be looking at are Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. So those are the states that, people might want to pay the most attention to, but it doesn't just matter if you were kind of on one of those knife edge states in 2020. It also matters if you're in New York or if you're in Ohio, wherever you are, you ought to care about this because it really matters for every race along the way. If you're really concerned about the presidential in 2024, those states I named are the ones that you might want to be paying the most attention to. But like I said, it doesn't matter where you are. It matters because kind of selecting an election denier to run your elections is going to have an impact up and down the ballot.
And those states, though, are unique in the sense that you might expect there to be all election deniers running in, say, Arkansas, but I was taking a look at your tracker and it's like, okay, none, right? I mean, it seems...
Or Georgia, right?
Or Georgia. Well, that's an almost unique situation because their integrity was called into question by Trump, and so the only thing that prevented them from being election deniers, frankly, was their own kind of egos, saving us for the first time in a while, Republican egos. But I
think it's maybe a little bit more than that. We probably ought to give them a little bit more credit than that. They showed some real integrity then in 2020.
Yeah, all right, but I'm loath to give Republicans credit, but I'll for your purposes, I hear what you're saying. But what is scary to me is what happens when states that are, as you say, a little bit more in play and could go either way, if there is a resurgence, or not resurgence, but a high turnout of Republicans and people who are motivated, MAGA fans, essentially, then that could have so many impacts on the way that those state elections and even federal elections are constructed based on their influence, that we could be seeing a very rapid transition to a deeper red as opposed to like purple states, let alone just the threats of democracy.
Yeah, without necessarily having to put, kind of a partisan valence on this, although it's pretty clear that there is a, one party that does seem to kind of go this way a little bit more than another. What matters is that we're potentially setting up states where the will of the voters isn't actually respected, or that's the worst case scenario, or a situation where there's chaos and uncertainty and constant doubt about whether or not our democratic system is working. And when you sow that continual level of distrust and doubt, you have democratic systems begin to break apart. Trust and confidence in the way we run our elections is the lifeblood of our democracy. And when you break that apart, you see conflict, you see violence, you see an inability to reach resolution, you see very bad substantive policy outcomes as a result of it. It's frightening to live in a society where you've got election deniers in charge and where they are, kind of systematically undermining the way we run our government, which is the way we try to get along without fighting.